Hey everyone, this is Shruti from Simplilearn. Welcome to this Content Marketing full course by Simplilearn. We'll begin this full course by understanding what content marketing is and some of its popular strategies. Then we will see how content marketing affects SEO, and we'll understand how to rank number 1 on Google and YouTube by creating high-quality content. Then we will look into the top 10 important content marketing interview questions and answers. At the end, we will look into minor concepts like a simple beginner's guide to content marketing and introduction to content marketing certification training. By the end of this video, I can assure you that all your content marketing career-related queries would have been answered. For this training, with me, I have our experienced content marketing specialist Rob and Greg Jarbo. Together, they will take you through the various topics of content marketing. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update from Simplilearn.
I'm Greg Jarbo, and what is that? I mean, what we're going to talk about in this first module of a content marketing foundation course is literally content marketing? Okay, what is it? So content marketing is not a new concept. It's been around for over 100 years. In fact, one of the classic foundation stories of the birth of content marketing goes all the way back to the Michelin brothers in France. And the Michelin brothers, in case you haven't done your history, that's okay, little refresher right now, were two brothers who made pneumatic tires, and they were trying to sell them along with an innovative product at its time called the automobile in an era where the roads were horrible, in a place, France, where frankly people didn't like to get outside of Paris and into the provinces because, my God, what was worth going out there for? For Paris. It's all happening here. And what the Michelin brothers realized is if they wanted to sell more tires, they had to get people to drive farther and farther and use them. So what did they come up with? The concept that really is the birth of content marketing in my book was the Michelin Guide. And the Michelin Guide was unique in that it reviewed restaurants, not just restaurants nearby in Paris, but restaurants out there in the provinces. And the Michelin brothers are the ones who came up with the 1, 2, and 3-star rating system to say, this restaurant, I know it's way out there. It's, bad roads, but guess what? To die for. The ratatouille, you got to have it. This is a 3-star restaurant. It's worth making the trip. And oh, by the way, since we're going to give you a guide and you have to get out of Paris in order to get there, we're going to tell you where you can find gasoline along the way, which hotels you might want to stay at overnight. And oh, by the way, just in case you have to, how to repair a flat tire, particularly if it's a Michelin tire, because it's a pneumatic, and you know what? It's quite easy to repair. And guess what? That put Michelin on the map. Why? They weren't trying to sell you more tires. They weren't telling you about the features and benefits of round or tire repair. I mean, that was in there, but it was only a how-to article, not necessarily a feature and benefit. What they were doing was they were speaking to their audience about what their audience was truly passionate about, which in Paris in 1900 was food. And by creating content that got the audience to get into their new innovative automobile and drive all the way out there into the provinces for that absolutely remarkable 3-star restaurant, people got more flats. People had to replace their tires, but it was worth it. And oh, by the way, Michelin sold more tires. So that's a great story. Every time you sort of, hit a pause and like, well, we're doing content marketing and we need to come up with a concept, think back to the Michelin Guide. It's a great foundation. So let's go to a modern definition. Where are we now in the 21st century when it comes to content marketing? Well, you can read the slide here and read the definition, and some people like reading definitions. I'm not going to read it to you, but I am going to highlight a couple of words in the definition that I think are absolutely critical to any definition of content marketing. The content that you create needs to be relevant, and it also has to be valuable. Now, if it's not relevant, then you're not actually meeting my needs or interests, and why would I be interested in it? And we've gotten way too tired of screening out the commercial that comes on, trying to sell us snow tires. And pardon me, we live in Florida. I don't use snow tires. What the heck is this commercial doing? Interrupting what I'm watching. So relevance is important. Relevance means that this content isn't going to get screened out. And the valuable can work in a lot of different ways. It can be interesting. It can be useful. Value is an interesting proposition all by itself. But that's the key to content marketing. It's not just creating more spam. It's not just throwing more trash over the fence and hoping something happens. This is something where if you've created valuable and relevant content, you know what? Your customers will find you. That's a whole different kind of proposition. I know there's some skeptics who are saying, oh, come on. Content marketing is just a fancy new name for social media marketing, right? And the answer is, well, there is some overlap, and we're going to deal with that in Module 3. But let me just be clear here. Social media content is part of what content marketing needs to create, but it can also create content for your website, and that's not the social media. It can also create content that your PR people can share with reporters or bloggers, and that's not normally considered social media content. And by the way, all of that content can be optimized. So maybe it actually is part of SEO, not social media marketing. In fact, that's the other place that content marketing really overlaps. And it's not coincidental. It so happens that around February 2011, when Google rolled out the first of its multiple versions of the Panda update, all of a sudden, even SEOs started to pay attention to content marketing. Why? Because Google changed the rules. And what Google basically said is, if your content isn't valuable or relevant, you know what? It's not going to rank very well in our search algorithm. And all of a sudden, people who had been used to putting keywords in the right places realized content matters? You mean I've got to actually tell stories that are interesting? I've got to create information that's valuable? Yeah, you can make it relevant. That's the optimization part. But, if you're trying to optimize a piece of boring, irrelevant trash, God bless you, good luck. So yeah, content marketing has grown. It's tripled in terms of web search interest since the Panda update. And we're talking about Panda 1. Of course, there was Panda 2, Panda 3, Panda 4. I mean, come on. Google is driving us in this direction. And so content marketing is pretty relevant today. Now, one of the other things that people in content marketing struggle with is, oh, but you don't understand. I do B2B content marketing, or I'm a small business, or, pardon me, I'm an enterprise. And so content marketing has to come in flavors, right? Well, possibly, maybe, on occasion. So let's just question that assumption for a second. Content marketing has been around now long enough, and enough people have done it, that some research has been conducted, and it's been conducted against B2C marketers and B2B marketers and small business marketers and enterprise level marketers. And when they start asking key questions like, okay, we're going to try to determine what is the difference between an effective content marketer and an ineffective content marketer, let's see the results. Well, first of all, the most important thing to be an effective B2C content marketer is you need a documented content strategy. Oh, okay. All right. I mean, people who are winging it aren't as effective as people who actually have thought about this and written it down. Got it. Okay. No great insight, but, interesting to note. Secondly, they've got to have somebody in charge who oversees content marketing. Oh, Lord, does that mean we have to have a reorg? Or maybe we just have to designate somebody who reports to somebody else? Whatever. But guess what? It really helps if somebody is driving this process. Third, they've got to be using more content marketing tactics than their less effective peers. And this is not an argument more is better. This is just, pardon me, that's the way the data falls out. The people who are actually more effective are doing more different kinds of things, a broader range of tactics. And who knows, maybe it's that broader range that's part of the success formula. Same thing is true with social media platforms. The effective content marketers are using more than the ineffective ones. And last but not least, and this may be a sort of a result of the first four, by gosh, effective content marketers generally have greater percentage of the overall marketing budget in their organization. Wow, okay. That's the B2C marketing formula, but you don't understand. I'm not a B2C marketer. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the B2B content marketing formula. Guess what? You need to have a documented content marketing strategy to be an effective B2B content marketer. You need to have someone who oversees content marketing strategy. It helps if you are using more tactics and more social media platforms. And guess what? You spend a higher percentage of your overall marketing budget on content marketing. Well, that's similar to the B2C content marketers. But you understand, B2B is different. Yeah, there's a couple small differences, but guess what? Overall, the top 5 criteria are similar. And when you get to small business, here's what you're going to see. Same 5 criteria. And you're in an enterprise. I know. The world is different for enterprises. Actually, not so much. So, 4 different data points. Let's net it out. There's a pattern. And the pattern is I don't care what flavor of content marketer you are. You can be B2C, B2B. You can be small business. You can be large enterprise. At the end of the day, there are 5 things that you've got to focus on if you want to be effective. We've already covered these. And are there differences between small businesses and large enterprises, between B2B and B2C? Well, sure. But they're all at the margin. What's the downside? If we don't do this, is anyone going to come in and whack us? And the answer is maybe not inside your boardroom, but it may happen on the next sales call that one of your salespeople makes. They may encounter someone I like to call the man in the chair. And the man in the chair actually refers back to a classic McGraw-Hill ad campaign from, I think, the 1960s. But basically, the guy in the chair asks, theoretically, some questions from, quote, maybe your salesperson. Okay, I don't know anything about you. I don't know about your company. I don't know about your company's product. I don't know about your company's reputation or anything about you. And so what was it you were going to try to sell me? And that's the downside of not having a content marketing program.
Content marketing has been around for over 100 years. But in the online world, customers are behaving in lots of new ways, and they're consuming content on various kinds and types of devices. That changes things. Content marketing is now about creating content that consumers will engage with and act upon, not just read or listen to or watch. So in this introductory module, we're going to provide you with an understanding of how content marketing affects the decision-making process when people are on the customer journey to making a purchase. And with a solid content marketing strategy, your customers' buying decisions can actually happen faster. You can basically shorten the decision-making process, and you can reach and expand to new prospects. So one of the things that we hope that you're going to learn after basically taking this module, you should be able to do the following. First of all, you can define content marketing and other related concepts. Secondly, you should be able to explain why content needs to be relevant and valuable in order for it to be effective. Third, you need to describe the overlap between content marketing, SEO, social media marketing. Fourth, you need to name 5 traits of effective content marketers. And last but not least, you need to explain the benefits of content marketing. These are our objectives, and hopefully they're going to be your learning outcomes.
So content marketing is not a new concept. It's been around for over 100 years. In fact, one of the classic foundation stories of the birth of content marketing goes all the way back to the Michelin brothers in France. And the Michelin brothers, in case you haven't done your history, that's okay, little refresher right now, were 2 brothers who made pneumatic tires, and they were trying to sell them along with an innovative product at its time called the automobile, in an era where the roads were horrible, in a place, France, where frankly people didn't like to get outside of Paris and into the provinces because, my God, what was worth going out there for? We're Paris. It's all happening here. And what the Michelin brothers realized is if they wanted to sell more tires, they had to get people to drive farther and farther and use them. So what did they come up with? The concept that really is the birth of content marketing in my book was the Michelin Guide. And the Michelin Guide was unique in that it reviewed restaurants, not just restaurants nearby in Paris, but restaurants out there in the provinces. And the Michelin brothers are the ones who came up with the 1, 2, and 3-star rating system to say, this restaurant, I know it's way out there, it's bad roads, but guess what? To die for. The ratatouille, you got to have it. This is a 3-star restaurant. It's worth making the trip. And oh, by the way, since we're going to give you a guide, and you have to get out of Paris in order to get there, we're going to tell you where you can find gasoline along the way, which hotels you might want to stay at overnight, and oh, by the way, just in case you have to, how to repair a flat tire, particularly if it's a Michelin tire, because it's a pneumatic, and you know what? It's quite easy to repair. And guess what? That put Michelin on the map. Why? They weren't trying to sell you more tires. They weren't telling you about the features and benefits of round or tire repair. I mean, that was in there, but it was only a how-to article, not necessarily a feature and benefit. What they were doing was they were speaking to their audience about what their audience was truly passionate about, which in Paris in 1900 was food. And by creating content that got the audience to get into their new innovative automobile and drive all the way out there into the provinces for that absolutely remarkable 3-star restaurant, people got more flats. People had to replace their tires, but it was worth it. And oh, by the way, Michelin sold more tires. So that's a great story. Every time you sort of,
Greetings, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rob Sanders from Simplilearn, and today we're going to talk about content marketing strategy. So buckle up and let's get right to it, and we're going to get right into some of the best practices, some tips, some methodologies, some things you should be doing with content marketing. So right out of the gate, let's start talking about knowing your audience. Okay, so content is all about writing for a particular audience. So it's just like speaking, except when we're speaking to somebody, we're speaking directly to them. Content is very similar. And so we have to be able to know our audience ahead of time. So what you can do is collect demographics of your target audience based on who's coming to your website. So you can get that data in Google Analytics under audience. Email subscribers. I mean, who is subscribing to your emails? Who do you already have in your email database? And you can look at social media. I mean, you look at Facebook. You can look at the people who are already connected to you. Okay, these are just some three of many examples you could be doing to gather data on your audience. Okay, you have to know who your audience is before you start writing. For a successful content marketing strategy, you really just need to know your audience. And basically, you're going to segment them based on their interests. So that content is going to be catered to that audience. Okay, so if it's an audience that likes a specific, product that you offer or feature that's part of that product that you offer, then that's the segment you're going to be writing about. So you need to collect your data on your audience ahead of time. And then you're going to segment that audience, okay? So you're not going to write content for everyone because the shoe doesn't necessarily fit for everyone, okay? The shoe has to fit for a specific foot. And in this case, we're talking about an audience. We need to be able to segment our audience out. And you could certainly segment them out by age, by gender, by education level, by income, by interest. I mean, these are just some of the examples. Again, it could be new returning or new users versus returning users. It could be users who have purchased from you in the past versus users who haven't purchased from you in the past. It could certainly be an age range, or it could be even going further on interest level, or a combination thereof. Okay, so for example, you can get that demographic information using Google Analytics. You just got to go into Analytics, under Audience, under Demographics. You're going to see age, and age is broken out by age range, and then you're going to see gender. So you're going to see a breakdown of gender. And use that to your advantage. So if you're going to, write some content and 99% of your traffic is female, the age of 18 to 24, then, that content's going to be catered accordingly. So you could certainly go to Facebook Page Insights and get some really good demographic data there because Facebook is all about demographics. Okay, so you could see exactly, how many fans you have broken out by men versus women. And then you could see, again, same thing as Google Analytics, you could see an age range breakout. You could use Twitter Analytics. I mean, Twitter shares some really good insights into education level. So, if you're dealing with, highly sophisticated people who have master's degrees or even higher, or let's just say even on LinkedIn, that the majority of the people you're trying to target are C-level, meaning CEOs or CFOs or CMOs, chief marketing officers or chief executive officers, then you're going to cater your message a little bit different than, say, mid-range managers or even high-range managers or even VPs. So use your audience information that you collect on these various platforms to your advantage. Okay, so let's jump into number 2. We want to create high-quality content. Now, I know this sounds like a given, but... and I say but heavily, there's not a lot of high quality content out there on the internet. So separate yourself first and foremost. Always, always, always create high quality content. It's going to result in a lot of things that are going to benefit you. One, you're going to come across as, somebody who knows what they're talking about, and that's going to help increase your brand awareness. Okay, when you increase your brand awareness, people know about you, so it's likely going to increase traffic to your website. Or if you're on social media, if you produce good, high-quality content, people are going to share that content. Okay, so from an SEO perspective, it can improve website ranking, meaning if you have good quality content, and it's really focused in on a specific topic or a certain set of core words, keywords, then you're going to rank. Improves website dwell time, meaning, hey, you got good content. People are going to hang around to see what else you have to offer. Okay, so it's no secret that, good content usually leads to quality engagement. And then certainly last but not least, you can gain a lot of leads here, meaning, hey, somebody likes what you have to say, whether it's a video or blog post or infographic. People are going to become more interested, more engaged, spend more time, and that's all going to funnel through to somebody taking that next step in the funnel and becoming more interested in your service or even purchasing one of your products. So creating high quality content involves brainstorming topics and terms. You got to do the upfront work. Due diligence is at work here. So brainstorm some topics. Use a keyword research tool to gather results. So if you have a topic, one of the benefits of quality content is rankings. Go to Google's keyword planner. Understand how much quality and understand how much competition each keyword has, or understand how much volume each keyword has. That's what's available in Google's keyword planner or any keyword planning tool. You always want to create original content. Okay, so you don't want to plagiarize or take somebody else's content, and then you want to support that content with compelling headlines. So if you have a piece of content, you got to get somebody's attention, write a nice headline that's going to grab their attention. Okay, so give valuable content to your readers and add resources from well-known sites. So if you do borrow, say, a data point from another source, then cite that source. You also want to create engaging and thought-provoking content. Get somebody to think. People are going to read your content because they don't know the subject matter. They're interested in the subject matter, and they want to be able to spend the time taking something away from that content. Follow a logical structure and use relevant images. I can't stress this one enough. Just throw things on a web page, put some structure to it. And if you have to, break it out. If you feel like you have too much content, there's no harm in breaking it into part 1 versus part 2. Get people, tease them a bit. Get them to come back and read part 2. Okay, use different content forms in case somebody's interested. Maybe you want to capture some data. Prefer short paragraphs to make the content readable. Remember, if you're talking to C-level folks, maybe you don't have to dummy down the content, so to speak. But if you're dealing with, folks or people that are right out of high school or still in high school, then adjust your content and format and paragraphs accordingly. And then update the content as well. Just because you publish it doesn't mean that it's done. When we're talking about a web page, we're talking about something that is actively changing or can change. The medium that is dynamic. Okay, so if a data point's changed, go back in and update that data point. And then let people know about it, because they may want to come back and check in to see how much that data point's changed. So these are all, good takeaways for creating high quality content. There's some other things that you should be aware of, grammatical mistakes. You need to avoid those. There's no reason for grammatical mistakes. Today's technology doesn't allow for it. And hey, listen, we all have friends, we all have colleagues. My desk is sitting next to a colleague who's more than happy to read something before it gets published. So take advantage of the resources you have available. No reason for it, because if you have a grammatical mistake, you just lost a lot of credibility. Don't be afraid to add a clear call to action at the end of your content. If somebody's interested in reading it, they're probably going to be interested in taking the next step, whatever that next step is. Okay, so create content that fulfills viewers' requirements, meaning if somebody's searching for something and your content shows up in the search results, then they're actively looking for you. What are you offering them? Is it fulfilling their requirements? Don't be afraid to use examples throughout your content. In fact, work in or integrate some case studies in there. Show clear examples to stress your points. And then just don't put words on a web page. So break up that content with an image that's going to be visually appealing. Okay, and you can add images from public domain sites, meaning stock imagery, if that's what's going to help create visually appealing content. And then give more information to your audience. And we say prefer to give more information, meaning, hey, going back to the content I was saying about breaking it up, organizing it, if you have more information, don't withhold it. Have them come back and read a secondary blog post or secondary piece that supports the original. Now, we want to move from high quality content to running A/B test. A/B test is so important. Why? Because with A/B split testing, you can increase your conversion rates. Okay, so 4 elements to test in your content marketing strategy. So if you have content, say a blog, and you're testing that blog, test out the images, test out the forms. Do you have a long form or short form? Test out the content length. You can have a variation that is a lot shorter than the original. Does that increase or decrease bounce rates? Play around with call to actions. Call to actions do matter. Do you want to use a softer call to action, a softer tone, or do you want to use something very direct and strong? Test call to actions to see what's going to get people to move closer closer to purchasing and through that funnel. So A/B testing to me is something that should be naturally done. With Google Optimize, it's free. So with images, you could test a lot of different variations of images, anything from people to, outlandish imagery to just something very stock and neutral. But just make sure that those images are relevant to the post. Test the length of that content. Again, if you know that your average time on page is very low, don't write something very long. Write something that you think is going to stick with that time on page. But on your A/B test, create something maybe a little longer. If it's engaging enough, maybe somebody's going to stay a little bit longer on the page. So, create a variation that's going to play with that length. Okay, so use analytics to your advantage to figure out, as a baseline, what amount of content is getting people to stay on the page. Then see if you could push the envelope one way or the other. Okay, improving the page with sign-up forms. Really, what you want to do is create a user-friendly experience. So when you have sign-up forms, and don't make them non-intuitive, don't make them difficult. Link maybe up to Facebook or Google, so if they're creating an account, they can create an account via Google or Facebook. Or, don't put too many forms on the page. And then on those CTAs, as I mentioned, play around with the tone. You can also play around with the color. I test color all the time. Believe it or not, color does matter. Don't use red, use green. People react to different colors. But again, you have cultural variances as well. So you got to take that into account. If you're in the Middle East or the Far East, Asia, color schemes and what you say matters, and it changes versus, say, Europe or the West. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're making changes on color or tone or placement and things of that nature. So you want to conduct a competitor analysis. So we're talking about creating high quality content, testing that content, brainstorming some topics, looking at your audience. You're doing all this work. You might as well take the next step and figure out what it is your competitors are doing. So you can opt for competitive analysis by identifying your competitors' top performing content for specific topics. Okay. And so really what we're trying to do here is improve our conversion rates. So what are your competitors doing? What are their baselines? We can maybe up that ante. That data is also available in Google Analytics. So you can look at benchmarking reports in Google Analytics to get some form or fashion. You can also go to Facebook and look at your competitors' Facebook pages and see what's performing in terms of engagement. But what you want to do is find out your strongest competitors by using search engines or check which websites are competing with you. And again, that could include Facebook as well, or maybe even LinkedIn. So you go with the search engine route, you can always type in that coveted keyword that you want to be found for, see who's ranking ahead of you, and you can see the metadata, meaning the title tag and the meta description. You can actually see, hey, what are these guys writing that's getting them recognized in the search engine rankings? So you can certainly, if you go to the search engine route, you can certainly leverage an SEO platform like SEMrush or Moz or something like that. That's going to allow you to get some good insight on competitor information. So keep in mind there are SEO platforms that will give you information on your competitors. And that's what these SEO platforms are good for. So number 5, moving on, choose a suitable content format. So now we've done all this homework. We know what we want to say. We know who we want to say it to. We're ready to do some testing, but we need to find a format because it's not always about a web page per se, meaning content on a web page. There's not always about a blog post with content in that blog post. Okay, we need to decide the type of content that's going to fit what we're trying to say. So again, you can go the traditional route with just posting a blog post, and there's nothing wrong with that, because with a blog post, you can incorporate video and imagery. You could also go a more harder route. When I say harder, more, I say official route with an ebook or case study, something that a user is going to be able to take away with maybe download. Okay? Something more official, something more in-depth, something with a harder stamp on it. So that shows individuals that you've taken the time, you've done this homework, you've done this research, you've done some really in-depth analysis, and now the proper format for that is not a blog post, it's an ebook. Now, if you're into talking, like I am, then you could certainly do a podcast. And podcasts are always popular depending on the topic. So you got to be aware of the topic. Now, videos are always a good option. You got the likes of video and YouTube and some other, video platforms out there that allow you the ability to get found very quickly, especially with the likes of YouTube. People use YouTube before they go on to purchasing a product. So think about that. So if you're trying to get somebody, if you're trying to sway an audience to move from being a brand awareness and a loyal, customer to taking the next step, okay, to purchasing more or purchasing for the first time. And so videos kind of help convey that. Now, if you're trying to convey a lot of different points, then an infographic might be your best option. Instead of having to write out all those points, try using an infographic to convey those points visually. Now, again, with blog posts, it should have valuable content that can be shared by your website visitors on social. So that's the key. Make sure you have those shareable social icons. Now, with ebooks, it should have longer and in-depth content. And it shouldn't be published frequently. So maybe if this is something you're doing annually, then ebook could be the format. With a case study, what you should have a customer story that succeeded in you solving that customer's problem. So the case study is always there for somebody to get an idea of what you're all about. Infographic is just visualizing data in a more organized way, in a more visual way, so somebody understands what you're trying to convey. Now with that podcast, again, suppose your audience doesn't have an interest in reading. Again, it could be a certain age, certain gender, a certain culture. Hey, everybody absorbs information differently. So think about it. Ask yourself, is a podcast the best way to communicate to my target audience? And then videos are highly engaging. They're also shareable on blog posts and pretty much most, if not all, social media platforms. So once you've done that, once you choose the proper format, you want to choose a content management system that's going to work for you. So you want to be able to choose something where you can plan appropriately, produce, manage, publish, and measure results all in one place. There are plenty of content management systems out there that will help you do all of those things. Okay, so some examples are WordPress, HubSpot, Binder. We can list hundreds. If you're into blogging, WordPress is the way to go. If you're into building out landing pages that you want to, share, HubSpot could be the way to go. Okay, there are lots of available options out there. So moving on, number 7, target your audience using emails. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, we all know what emails are. Emails help us to communicate directly with our target audience and convert them to leads. So email is a good way to follow up with your audience. So if you've done a podcast, follow up with an email. Maybe get them to, fill out a survey via email based on that podcast. Or if you create a podcast about some data that you talked about in that podcast, follow up that with them via email with an infographic perhaps, okay, built into the email. Okay, there's lots of ways that all these formats can complement themselves via email. Okay, you could certainly take a blog post and package it into an email and have a link pointing back to the blog post, maybe as a teaser. Or if you're doing a series of blog posts, you could tease that in an email. So an email is a good way to, follow up with your target audience indirectly or directly. And when we say indirectly, you can collect emails and send out those emails with, certain information. Or what you should be doing is targeting and segmenting your emails just like you are your content. So if you're producing content for a certain audience, then make sure that particular audience gets that same email. Now, some of the email content that you could share with your target audience are newsletters, seasonal emails, promotional emails, automated messaging. And what we mean by automated messaging, hey, if somebody just purchased from you, send them a thank you email. Maybe follow up a couple days later with another email with a survey. Or what you could do is, if you know who your loyal customers are, target them with a promotional email. So there's lots of ways to slice and dice content via email. Just make sure you know your target audience is. There's lots of things you can do in email. Again, you can complement lots of different formats within email, as I mentioned before, with a podcast or a blog post. So keep all that in mind. Email is a good way to communicate with your audience. The last point we want to make here is use native ads. So we talk about native ads. It's one of the smartest ways to connect your audience with your brand. So, for example, this is a native ad on BuzzFeed. It's about 15 bands that probably wouldn't exist without Led Zeppelin. So for you folks out there that don't know who Led Zeppelin is, a rock group from the 70s, late 60s, 70s, disbanded in 80, 81, 82, early 80s, but, people grew up like myself listening to Led Zeppelin, so you could see the headline here, 15 bands that probably won't exist without Led Zeppelin. I'm interested in who those bands might be. Even if you don't know who Led Zeppelin is, you might be inquisitive to say, who is this Led Zeppelin group and what are these 15 bands? The key here is not necessarily the headline or Led Zeppelin per se, but it's a native ad and it's sitting next to content talking about music. So according to Forbes, online audiences are 25% more likely to look at a native ad than at a banner. And so that native ad, in this case, we're talking about music, needs to be sitting or accompanied alongside content talking about, in this case, music. It would help if it was rock music, but just music in general might get enough to pique people's interest. So if you're going to create content, align that content with something that's, naturally going to fit. And that's why we call them native ads, because they're native to the content that they're associated with. So finally, after all that's said and done, when all you've done is create good content, follow up via emails, targeting your audience, and associating that content with, content natively, then you can always measure your content performance. So this is my favorite part of it all. You go in analytics, go into Facebook Insights, you want to go in and check out how that content's performing. And you want to do that because you want to be able to see what's performing, what's not performing. The key here is associating the content with KPIs. That's really the key. So measuring the right metrics can help you understand whether your content is engaging or not. So again, measuring the right metrics. So when we're talking about a video, you're not necessarily going to look at page views, you're going to look at video views. So, some of these basic metrics of users and sessions and page views, bounce rate, dwell time, that's all great, but you just need to make sure that you're aligning the right metric with the right asset. So for example, if you have a case study in an ebook, you want to make sure that you're measuring how many downloads the ebook or the case study received. Again, with the video, you want to measure video views. Now, if you're packaging up emails and sending them out to your target audience, you want to make sure you look at open rates and click rates. So a lot of things you can be looking at. So make sure you choose the right metrics, because there's hundreds and hundreds of metrics to choose from. So just be aware of all the different metrics that are available. If you're in it for search, how much traffic getting from search? Where are you ranking? So there are a lot of things you need to think about. So think about the content that you're producing and think about how you want to be able to measure that content. So let's go back over our checklist here. So what you could do is create an editorial calendar. In fact, I would highly suggest you create an editorial calendar in order to keep track of all the content you've done over a period of time. Are you making your content worth reading? That means, are you checking the results of that content? What we just went over, measuring the content. Is it worth reading? Have a column set up in that editorial calendar. Performing or not performing. If it's not performing, don't do it again. Okay, curate your content. Okay, you always want to, make sure you're reusing or using or adding to the content that you've created. Guest post on influential blogger websites. You want to add statistics, numbers, and quotes to your content. Make it engaging. Make it look like you've done your homework. You could share all your content, not just on social media, but, platforms like SlideShare. Now, you can share it on all social media platforms. I'd highly recommend it. And again, you can even repurpose it as a blog post. So if it's a podcast, then, you can recite that podcast in the form of a blog. Okay, so get some testimonials that support some of your content. Again, create a podcast, you could send out an email with a survey or trying to solicit some testimonials. Or if you post something on Facebook, leverage the feedback you get from Facebook in the form of a testimonial. Okay, and then you want to promote your blog post for maximum success, and a lot of that means SEO. So make sure you do your due diligence and get the right keywords in that blog post. Okay, so you can create personas for different user audiences. Okay, so remember, it's all about tone. Okay, so if you're going to create a blog post, make sure your tone is aligned with that right audience, whether that be young, middle-aged, or older. Are you choosing the right type of content? Okay, you'll know based on the results. Okay, you want to add H1 and H2 tags on your web pages. Why? Because when we're talking about content, we're talking about organizing the content. And H1 and H2s help you organize the content appropriately. Customize the metadata. Metadata is title tag and meta tag descriptions and even alt tags. Okay, all of that is for search. So you want your content to show up in search, whether that's video, infographic, or blog post. All of it can be shown in search results. So make sure you write a good title and make sure you write a good meta description, because that's what people are going to see when they search. Okay, so you want to create a detailed summary and title. And again, that goes along with the title tag and meta description. And then you want to make it easy for the audience to ask questions and comment on your blog. So don't be afraid, like I'm going to do right now in this video, is if I'm missing anything from this checklist, feel free to comment. Hey, I've written my fair share content, but I could be talking to an audience that is just as qualified as I am, and they may have some tips. So feel free to comment underneath this video. Now, don't be afraid to ask, just like I just did. People are always willing to provide constructive feedback. So don't be afraid to ask for it and make it easy. So to me, every blog post needs to have some form of a comment box, because blog posts are out there to solicit engagement. Now let's recap everything we talked about, because we certainly covered a lot, and there's a lot to cover when it comes to content marketing. So 1, know your audience. Again, you can lean on Google Analytics, demographic data, whether it be age or gender. You could do the same with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Every platform has some data you could take away. Create high quality content. When I mean high quality content, brainstorm some topics. Has it already been written to death about? Or is this unique? Don't write something your competitors are writing. Okay, don't copy what your competitors have written. Organize your content. Support it with good imagery. All of these are tips to creating high quality content. Okay, when you create that content, think about running some A/B tests. Run some variations and switch out the image, switch out the call to action, see what's going to get people to react and engage with the content. Conduct competitor analysis. So lean on the Facebooks of the world to see what your competitors are posting, see what's engaging for them. Okay, you can also lean on these SEO platforms like SEMrush and Moz. All you got to do is plug in a domain and they're going to give you some information about where a particular competitor ranks for a keyword, or how many backlinks and what websites are linking to them. So all that's available in these SEO platforms. Okay, so you want to choose a suitable content format. We listed a few, from ebooks to case studies to podcasts to infographics to blog posts to videos. It's up to you what you think is best for your audience. Just keep in mind you need to be able to measure it. And so that's the important thing. If it doesn't work the first time out, then you might want to consider changing out the content format. Choose a content management system. Plenty out there. WordPress is a good one if you're going to be a blogger. Okay, blogging allows you to, post, optimize that blog post. You could have the ability to share that blog post across social platforms, and you can also have that blog post show up in search engine results. So you can't do any of that without a good content management system. So you want to target your audience using emails. Okay, so email is a good way to, again, further communicate with that particular segmented audience. And again, you could use it to send out promotional emails to loyal followers. Or you can use systematic emails to send an email, a thank you email to somebody who purchases, and then another follow-up email. And again, you can repurpose some of the content you've done in another format in the form of an email. So, if you created a video, put that video in the form of an email and send it out to your audience to make sure they're not missing out on that video you just created. So lots of ways to use email. Take advantage of email. It's your ally here. Okay, use native ads. Okay, don't be afraid to put that content and pair it with some other content on another website. It's been proven. People are going to engage in an ad that they see based on the content they're currently reading. Because the ad, if it's native, it's going to be similar in nature to the content they're currently engaged in. And then measure your content performance. I can't say this enough. Make sure you're leveraging Google Analytics. Okay, with Google Analytics or Facebook Insights or Twitter or LinkedIn or any other platform you're running on, they're going to have data on what you've posted. So take advantage of it. Align your KPIs. So if it's an ebook or case study, don't measure just traffic, measure how many people are actually downloading them.
In most organizations, the people who are doing search engine optimization have been doing it for a while. And I can tell you, because I've been doing it for a while, that in the old days, it was mostly technical with a little bit of content sprinkled in. So for argument's sake, let's say 80-20. 80% of what an SEO needed to learn how to do had to deal with, your meta tags, your metadata, CMS systems, and blah, 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 blah. And, oh, by the way, you needed some content on the page. Well, here we are a long time past that. And if this, you look through this slide here, for example, this is the latest guidance from Google on the kind of content they want. And if you look through the list here, most of the items on it aren't technical. And frankly, most of it is content. And if you think about it, what this means is that the job description for SEO has changed dramatically, particularly beginning with the Panda update, but then including the Penguin update, and then Hummingbird. And pardon me, more and more and more, SEOs had better be interacting with the people who are creating quality content, engaging content, credible content, useful content. It's not enough just to put keywords in the right places anymore on pretty thin content. That won't get you where you want to go. So again, different paths, maybe the same direction, but the folks in content marketing and the folks in SEO frankly need each other, and they may or may not recognize it in your organization, but it's a starting point. This is a conversation you probably need to have.
Content marketing is complex. It often overlaps with other elements of marketing. The most typical overlaps are with social media marketing and SEO, and there probably already are in your organization those kind of groups. The SEOs may be on one floor, and the social media marketing people may be in a different building, whatever. But the new success formula says we got to get all those folks to the same table. Now, we may have to do it virtually. We may have to use, webinars in order to hold those kind of meetings. Who knows? But the point is that, the world is shifting and organizational structures need to shift with it. And again, that's not something you can change tomorrow, but that is something that will evolve over time. And for what it's worth, it turns out that, let's just say, the people who are in SEO, they may or may not admit it at first, but they absolutely need to work with the people in content marketing. Why? Because basically after Panda and Penguin, the rules shifted. And it's less about your title tag. And it's mostly focused now on the quality of your content and whether that content is link worthy, which means it's really compelling content. It's remarkable content. That's content that's going to get people to link to it because, wow, that's, and that's not necessarily part of the skill set that was required to be a successful SEO 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So again, you got to get these folks to the table. They've got to work together, and again, that means the organizational structure probably needs to shift. And the same is true with the social media marketing folks. They went out and their initial goals and objectives were, get lots of likes, get lots of fans. Get lots of views, get lots of Twitter followers. Why? Because that seemed to be the metric that the platform gave us. And so we used it to measure success. Well, it turns out none of those measures actually measure real success because they're focused on being successful on the platform. Boy, I have lots of fans. As opposed to being successful in business. Wow, that generated lots of leads and sales. So there is a real discrepancy between, let's just say, the center of gravity. Okay? It's not Facebook. You're not going to make a lot of money on Facebook. It's just not set up to do business. You got to get those folks that you've engaged in Facebook to your website where they can buy something. And that's a, radical shift for all the folks who are in social media marketing to say, wait, time out. But that's not what I was told a couple of years ago. And the answer is that's correct. What we've learned over time is that being engaging is useful if it's harnessed to a benefit. And I'll tell you, in most organizations, the social media marketing people are under a cloud because they aren't delivering business benefit. And they too need to learn to work with the content marketing people in order to do that. And in some cases, they may not be creating the right kind of content that actually generates leads and sales as opposed to, is inexpensive to create to get my next fan or my next Twitter follower. So the key metrics here are no longer how many likes or comments or shares did you get. That's nice. But how many sales leads did you generate? What percentage of those converted into sales? That's a radical change. But again, it helps when the social media marketing people are at the table with the content marketing people.
Greetings everyone, this is Rob Sanders from Simplilearn, and today we're going to talk about how to rank #1 on Google, high quality content, and talk about the impact content has on your ability to get your website ranked #1 on Google. So let's just say you have content on your website and the content is ranking on, page 4 of Google. And it's that blog with ice cream recipes. And if it's just content for the sake of content, it's not really informative, then it's not necessarily going to get good engagement. In the eyes of Google, they want to rank content that's very informative, it's very fresh, it's exciting to read, it's interesting, it's going to have good engagement. So if it's a recipe or an article about any topic, if the content is just not informative, then you're not going to get good engagement. And when you don't get good engagement, if people don't stay on the site to engage in the content and they just leave the website after landing on the page, causing a bounce, then the content's just going to continue to fall down the rankings. And we want to prevent that. We want to move up the rankings. We want to be number 1 on Google. We don't necessarily want to fall in the rankings for our content. So content is a key driver in being able to rank number 1 on Google. So if the content is on page 9, what can we do? Well, we want to be able to, take that content and do something with it. We feel like we did write engaging content, so let's go ahead and share it on social media. And to me, social media is a good platform to share your content, because on social media platforms like Facebook, for example, you're building a community on that platform. That community is already interested in your content. So if you're sharing an ice cream recipe, especially in the summertime, and you're engaging with your community on that platform, then the likelihood of that community on that platform is going to increase engagement. Increased engagement will send social signals to the search engine that says, hey, this content is good quality. Likewise for any other platform. Most social media platforms have engagement metrics, and those engagement metrics pass signals. Is it good? Is it not good? Do we like this content? Are we giving it a thumbs up? Are we going to want to follow it? Are we going to want to share it? And so if you share content that you feel is engaging on social platforms, then it's going to be engaging, and it's likely going to cause an increase in engagement. For example, a decrease in bounces. And once you share that quality content, then the likelihood of it moving up the rankings, even as far as number 1 on Google, is going to be greater. So you always want to start out writing good quality content. So let's talk about good quality content, because Google does take content seriously. They do take into account what other people think of that content. So high quality content is an important factor. So how to create good content? That's always the question. So let's talk about some best practices here. Remember, in the last segment, we talked about keyword research. So we want to perform good keyword research. Why? Because we want to choose keywords. Remember, we're choosing multiple keywords per page. One keyword could be related to our brand. One keyword could be related to the content, but another keyword could be related to a user's intent, like recipes. If you recall the example we used with bread recipes, maybe somebody's looking to type in a keyword that says, how do I make, a bread? Or how do I make a specific type of bread? Or how do I make banana bread? Or what's the best recipe for banana bread? They're question related, and we want to be able to answer those questions. So that's where choosing those right keywords that's going to respond to a user's intent. So starts with choosing the right keywords. So remember, we talked about a number of different tools when we talked about keyword research. So there's a research tool that you can use called phrase.io, and that will help you do quick research on, keywords and trends and whatnot. So if you know a better research tool that you use for keyword research, then drop us a comment below. I'd be interested in getting your comments about keyword research and what research tools are out there. So if you know something better than phrase.io, drop a comment below, and we'd be interested in getting your perspective. So keyword research is key, but creating content that fulfills users' requirements. So answering those questions. If it's a recipe, we want to answer that question. If it's directions, we want to answer that question. If they don't know how to do something, we want to answer that question. And that's the whole idea behind content. Content is not just to fill a page, it's to really fulfill users' requirements. That's when you get good engagement. So if somebody's typing in something on Google and they're looking for an answer, your content should answer that question. But we also want to make the content readable. So in other words, write for your audience. Don't impress anybody with very high vocabulary type words that somebody doesn't necessarily know the meaning of. Don't use jargon. Don't use a street language, for example. Use everyday common language that's just easily digestible when your audience is reading. And then we want to keep that content organized. And so when we mean organized, we want to use headers and subheaders. Break your content into paragraphs. Keep the flow organized. If we can keep the flow organized, then it's going to be easier for somebody to read. And then it's okay to add resources, especially resources from credible sites. So if you can incorporate those resources in there, then it's just going to add the credibility to your content and let the audience know that, hey, I've done my research on this topic, and this is what this person has to say about it. This person who seems to be credible. Okay, so it only adds value to your content. So these are all tips to remember when creating content. And then the one important tip here is we want to use white hat techniques. And when we say white hat techniques, that means, if we've chosen keywords that are going to answer somebody's question, we don't want to stuff those keywords into the content. We want the content to be naturally written. So when we say opt for white hat techniques, that's what we mean. Write the content naturally. Keep it organized, keep it readable, include third-party sources, and make sure it answers a question. So there are different types of content. So there's content where you just write words. It's all text-based. You could also use an infographic. An infographic is simply just a graphic that visualizes exactly what you're trying to explain. For example, if we want to write an article about how to write good, engaging content, we don't necessarily have to write all that out as a text. We can create an infographic. So for example, here's an infographic on 20 effective ways to basically not bore your readers, but write engaging content. So you could see this is an infographic. It's all graphically laid out. So infographics tend to be easier to understand because they're visual. They're easy for the end user to comprehend because there's generally no jargon. It's usually images that are portraying the point of what you're trying to get across. And so it tends to break it up, the monotony of just text. It's more visually appealing, and it's laid out and organized. So you can see this infographic has 20 different steps or rules, and they lay those out all here in this infographic. And the great thing I like about infographics is you could share them on social media. You can re-engage them as a post. You could save them on really any social platform. So infographics tend to tell a better story versus, say, just writing text. You can use video and images, so you don't necessarily have to lay it all out in an infographic. You can certainly insert a video or an image into your content, especially if it's a blog post. If it's a blog post, then sometimes video and images on its own tell the story. You don't necessarily need text to go ahead and tell your story. A video or an image, as they say, tells 1,000 words. And so images and videos are great to use in a blog post. So using different forms of content, you always want to review your content. When a user dwells on your web page for a longer time, Google will tend to think, okay, this person's engaged, so we're going to rank that favorably. So if you're using infographics, videos, and images, then the chances of somebody being more engaged are going to increase versus just text that's not well organized and written out in a way that somebody doesn't necessarily understand. So be creative in the types of content you use. So longer engaging content tends to bode well with search engines. So this is according to HubSpot. So the more word count you use, the more words you use, the chances of you ranking higher are going to be better. Just take into account best practices. You want to maybe break up the content with an image, organize it, make it engaging, use headers. So it's not necessarily just words, it's the words and how those words are written, how they're structured, the types of keywords you're using, how you're engaging with your audience. There's a lot of factors, again, those best practices we just went over. But the key is, if you have longer, more engaging content, then it's going to bode better for you on search engines. So a couple of steps to create high quality content. So you want to begin with a comprehensive introduction. So always introduce your content. Remember, the content should be relevant to the keywords. So if you're choosing keywords in your keyword research, think about answering that question. If somebody's typing in bread recipes, maybe they're looking for banana bread recipes. How to make the best banana bread, or how to make banana bread using dried figs. We want to be able to align our content with that keyword naturally. You want to create a title that's worthy, that's click worthy. So remember, if you're in Google search and you're doing search for something simple like bread recipes, we want to make something that's going to be engaging for somebody to click on, like easy perfect yeast bread, or easy crusty French bread, or something that's going to be engaging. The best bread recipes, or how to make the best homemade bread. Something that's going to draw somebody's attention to the title of that blog post. So we want to include LSI keywords. So what I mean by LSI keywords in your content, we mean, long tail keywords. Make it natural. Headings and subheadings should consist of keywords and variants. So if you're writing headers and subheaders, include the keyword in there. And that way, the content always stays relevant to the audience. Okay, shorten your sentences and paragraphs, so don't write long paragraphs. Remember, we want to break this up. We want to make it easy for the end user to read. And we want to always put internal links on our blog post. Why? Because if we have internal links, then if we have a link from one blog post to another blog post, or say our blog post to an internal page on our website, we want to make sure that it's relevant content. That way, if somebody's reading something and you have an internal link, let's just say from a bread recipes page to a banana bread recipes page, then they may find it interesting, click on that link and go to the banana bread recipes page. So it's keeping somebody engaged on your website. So putting in internal linking will help keep the end user engaged, because you're offering up links that's relevant to the content. You always want to break up that content with images. Okay, we want to use alt tags, meaning we want to pen the image with text, so that way if the image doesn't load, then at least the alt text will load. So we can incorporate call out boxes, and more importantly, we want to update our content regularly. So we always want to get the best recipe out there if it's banana bread, or different ways to create banana bread, or always just coming up with ways to update the content. So we want to keep our content, our blog post fresh. And then we want to include a CTA, call to action. If we include a call to action, then that's going to keep somebody engaged and have them act on your content. So these are steps to creating high quality content. And so let's look at an example here. And this is a 3-month-old post on BuzzFeed. And it's 21 pictures that restore your faith in humanity. So it has a lot of likes, a lot of tweets, and that means it's engaged. People are engaged when reading that. And so if we go and look at it as an example, we could see it on BuzzFeed here, 21 pictures that will restore your faith in humanity. So this was written back in 2012. Again, a lot of engagement. But if we look at it, we can see immediately that it's taking into account third-party sources. It's got some content, it's got images, it's being broken up by images. We could see there's call to actions on there in the form of social, so people can go ahead and share it if they like it. Okay. It includes videos, it includes images, third-party sources. So it's a good post because, listen, it's engaging content. It's probably answering somebody's question about humanity. And we could see clearly that, look, there's a lot of different examples here from a lot of different sources, and we could take action on this content. So not just video, not just images, but text as well. And so it's very engaging, answers questions, takes into account the different types of content available. So this is a good post in that regard. So content's updated regularly, it's engaging, and it includes sources from high authority websites. Some do's and don'ts on the content. So take into account the best practices I mentioned about creating high quality content. Okay. Answer those questions that the end user wants to hear, because that likely is going to be their search. And so you want to be able to respond to the end user. That's part of creating high quality content. Different types of content, i.e. in the form of infographics or videos or text or images. You can add images from public domain sites. You can be relatable and use examples to clarify points, just like the BuzzFeed article. Simplify complex words. Don't use sophisticated language. Talk to your audience as if they were standing right in front of you. And use bullet points to exemplify your examples, your points. So some do's, the don'ts. Obviously, don't lift content. We don't want to lift content from another website. So that's plagiarism. So we want to have our own unique content. We also don't want to take images from other websites. And so if you do happen to find an image that works for your post and it's on somebody else's website, ideally that's not a good situation. But if you do happen to do that, then always give credit to the website. Okay, so if you took it from xyz.com, credit xyz.com for the image. And even put a link back. But ideally, you don't want to take images from other websites. Just as much as you don't want to take copy, you don't want to take images. Use your own imagery and content. But if you don't have imagery, then you can always go to stock photography. There are plenty of websites out there where you can sign up for a subscription, like Adobe Stock Images as an example. You could sign up for an account, and in some cases you can sign up for a free account and use stock imagery. Okay, don't give less information to your audience. Give your audience what they deserve, which is the information they're looking for. They're looking for the best banana bread recipes. Give them the best banana bread recipes. Incorporate your own images. Break it up with titles. Give them a good quality piece of content that they're going to be able to engage with. And so if you put long paragraphs in your content, then it's going to be less engaging. So try to avoid those long paragraphs. Remember, shorten up the paragraphs, keep the language simple, add in images, answer those questions, use third-party credible sources, but write it in your own words. And you should be on your way to creating good quality content. Creating high quality videos and some of the best practices around that. So along with everything we mentioned about choosing the right keywords, we always need to keep in mind that the videos we create need to be of high quality. So the content itself, in addition to the keywords, is a primary factor in ranking. So in order to have keywords, we need to have content. And in order to rank, we need to have good content. So let's talk a little bit about creating content and what's involved with that and what we really mean by high quality videos. So if you have a video content that is not informative or relevant to the topic, it won't rank. So that's just common sense. So you need to create content that's aligned with the topic, obviously, and then that way you have keywords that are aligned with the content. So, but if you have content that really isn't aligned with the topic, then you're not going to rank, no matter how much you've optimized that video. So just keep that in mind. So there's a couple of things we want to look at here. So high quality content is determined by really two metrics. So if we're not sure about how good our content is and how good of high quality video we created, we want to look at audience retention and user engagement. So audience retention is simply the percentage length of your video that the audience has watched. It's the percentage your audience has watched. So focusing on audience retention is important for people who want their videos to rank high. So if you want to rank, you need to optimize for the keywords, but you got to keep in mind content. So content is related to audience retention and user engagement. So audience retention, percentage length, your video that the audience has watched. And for example, It can be both absolute in minutes or percentages. So audience retention can be the average view duration or percentage of the audience that watched. Then we have user engagement. So user engagement are viewers who are engaged with your content. And so that means they're either sharing it, subscribing, commenting, or liking. So those are all forms of engagement. So the percentage of users who watched or how long they watched versus engagement or in combination with engagement are two factors for ranking. So let's talk about some tips for creating high quality videos. So we want to publish longer videos. And so what do we mean behind longer videos? So what's the reason for longer videos? Let's just suppose we have two videos, one shorter in length and one longer in length. First video is 15 minutes long. The second video is 7 minutes long. So on average, if viewers watch about 40% of both videos, then video X, which is 15 minutes long, will have more than twice the watch time of the video that's 7 minutes long. So remember, duration. We want, people to watch our videos longer. So if the video is longer in length, if it's 40%, then it's going to have a longer audience engagement, audience retention. So that's one of the reasons, from a metric standpoint. So even when viewers watch, both videos, the time is going to differ. So we want to take into account longer videos for primarily that reason, is because, it gives an end user an opportunity to watch the video longer, and then it's going to help us rank our videos longer. So when we talk about watch time, so if one video has higher watch time than the other, watch time is just the number of views times the average view duration. So another tip is we want to plan our video script. So we want to keep the content organized. My recommendation is, create an outline first. And once you create an outline of how the video is going to flow, then start populating with content. And so to me, that's how you can keep the flow organized, okay, is really with an outline, starting out with an outline. Videos are no different than, say, a presentation. If you've done a PowerPoint presentation, you always want to start out doing an outline. And then we want to upload high resolution videos. High resolution, we don't want to create videos that, are small resolution, like say, 400 by 400 resolution or something, something really small. We want to create something very high res. So according to Back or Linko, more than 50% of videos on the first page of YouTube are high definition. So high definition videos of higher quality are going to be shown on the first page of YouTube more often than not. So high resolution videos, organizing the content, publishing longer videos are examples of creating high quality videos. We also want to make sure that content is relevant to the title. So if we're talking about machine learning basics, obviously the content is going to be about, intro to machine learning or what is machine learning, and then the title should reflect that content. So aligning the title sets the expectation for the end user. So when they see a title, what is machine learning? Then when they watch the video, they're expecting to learn about machine learning and what it is. So if it meets expectations, then the chances are that person who's watching the video is going to watch it longer. And that means it's going to fulfill the viewer's requirements. And when you align everything accordingly, keywords, titles, content, then at the end of the day, the user is going to watch it. And the more they watch it, the higher the engagement, the better chance you have to rank. Some other tips that you could use to create high quality videos. So we want to be able to, use examples to clarify our content. So, don't be afraid to go into another screen like I am. If I'm talking about videos, jump into the machine learning basics video, which I've done throughout this session. I can simply do that by keeping the user engaged. Here, this video is about machine learning basics. Well, the title's aligned with the video. We made sure that we have a nice description about what the video is about, and we're aligning the expectations. So not only that, I'm showing you an example within the video itself. So we want to use examples throughout your video to keep the user engaged. It will also help clarify what you're trying to express in the video itself. So we want to make it visually appealing. So visually appealing means imagery or examples in the video. And then when we talk about imagery, you want to use good images in your video. So use public domain sites that are available to you, like Shutterstock or Flat Icon. I mean, there are plenty of those sites out there. So feel free to use any one of those sites to use high quality images in your video. Give more information to your audience. Giving maximum relevant information can help gain more views. And so when we talk about more information, again, it goes back to, the examples you use. Should be no shortage of examples. Here, description, use all 5,000 characters at your disposal. Imagery, we want to build up as much information as you can in the video itself to keep the end user, the viewer, engaged. We also want to create original content. So always create original content. You could certainly get ideas from YouTube. If you want to create a video about machine learning, see what else has already been done. Do searches on YouTube itself. But, when you're going to create a video, you can create another video about what is machine learning, but just make sure it has your own take on it. You're the subject matter expert when creating the video. Create it with your own original content. Have high audio quality and video effects. So just like you see here on this video, we have effects in it, and the audio is of high quality, meaning no background noise, no distortion, and we want to be able to speak clearly in the video. So you want to speak clearly, loudly, concise, just as I'm trying to do now, so that you can understand what I'm trying to say, or what the viewer's trying to understand when they're watching the video. So watching and listening are two of the components, and you want to make sure both of are high quality. Avoid distractions. We don't want to pause. You don't want to ramble on a particular point too long. We want to keep users engaged. So you always want to move from one point to the other, intermix it with examples. Those are ways to keep the users engaged. We want to include transcripts or subtitles for your video. So transcripts is just more content that's aligned with the video, and the search engines will be able to pick up that content and help your video rank. So to me, that's a key component to creating a good video, is having the necessary content that go along with the video. That outline I referenced earlier in terms of organization, you always want to have a content outline. So what topics are you going to cover in the video? That's why you need the outline, to point that out, confirm that before you actually start creating the video. Okay, focus on the initial 15 seconds. So that's key. Somebody's going to click the play button of your video, and if you don't catch them in the first 15 seconds, then they're likely going to pause the video or just go ahead and close it out altogether. So you want to be able to capture somebody's attention right off the bat. And even before they click on that play button, you want to make sure, again, you're exceeding expectations. That title is aligned with the content. So in your first 15 seconds, it basically needs to be catchy, but also setting the expectation of what the user's expecting. So in this example here, we want to pay close attention to the first 15 seconds. That's when viewers are most likely to drop off. So we can look at audience retention in YouTube. So use the options above the graph to view absolute audience retention or relative audience retention. So audience retention is basically how many views a video received and the percentage of the total number of video views. And that includes every moment of the video as a percentage. So we'll show you an example of what that looks like. So here, if we go to the machine learning basics video, we can look at the audience retention report. And this is, since it's been uploaded, the lifetime audience retention. So here we can see a nice graph, the percentage of people who viewed it and how long they viewed it. So in percentage. So here, for example, I can see, 44% watch the video for at least 2 minutes. Here I can see 28.6% watched it for 6 minutes plus. So that's the audience retention. It gives us an idea in terms of percentage, how many people or percentage of people watch the video at what length. So that's audience retention. So we want to keep that number high at the very initial stage of the video. And we want to keep it high throughout, and that's why you always want to create high quality content, using those examples, using imagery, making it organized content, not pausing, going from one point to the other. Those are all best practices to keep the viewer engaged. And then we want to add resources from well-known sites. So So throughout this video, we've used Backlink.co. There are other sources we've used. So if you have a source, go ahead and put it in your video to add credibility. And then we want to use cards to your video. So this cards is basically a feature that recommends relevant videos to your audience. So in addition to machine learning basics, there could be other videos about machine learning that we can recommend, or YouTube can recommend to the audience. To set up end screens, you want to make sure that with end screens, you can use relevant videos to your audience towards the end of your video. So you can recommend relevant videos towards the end of your video. You can also create playlists. So this is a feature that keeps your audience engaged with relevant content by auto playing the next video. So if you enable this feature, it's going to go from one video to another. Pattern interrupts keep the audience engaged. So basically, it allows your audience to stay within one video without having any interruptions involved. And so going back to the Did You Know, Audience Retention Report helps you analyze how well your videos are engaging to the audience. So what do we mean by that? Well, if I go back again to my Audience Retention Report, how engaging was it? Well, I could see 42%, 43% watched it on average of 3 minutes and 21 seconds. So to me, that's pretty good. Of course, we always want 100% of the video. If the video is 7 minutes long, if almost half of our audience saw over half of the video, then I would say that's pretty good. People were engaged. So audience retention just is a good report to start looking at to help you understand how engaging is my video. And if your video is not engaging, you can always go back and edit it or fix it or tweak it. So remember, the average view duration for all videos and top performing videos listed by all time, we can look at that information as well. In addition, we can look at demographics, so we can get an overview of the age, gender, and location. Okay, we can look at playback locations report, and what the playback locations report does is it helps us determine the platforms where our videos are being streamed from within YouTube. Look at the traffic sources, where did the viewers come from, devices, did they look on mobile or tablet? And so if there's any doubts, if you have any questions, please drop a comment below, but especially if you have any doubts on the metrics. So if we go back into YouTube, we can look at analytics, and if we're looking at analytics, we can see more, and then this is going to show us everything we need to see from device type. So if I click on more, I can see my playback location. So this will show me where the video was watched. It was on a watch page or a channel page. I could see the traffic sources. I could see the gender and age. So if I click on the viewer age report, I can see the percentage of views by age. So I can get a lot of information about my video and how it's performed, who's watched it, what they've done with it, where they come from, all the information they need to know. Okay, so it's all within YouTube Analytics. So again, if you have any questions about that, just drop a comment below. Especially if you're new to YouTube, you may have some questions, but just know that every video you publish to YouTube, high quality, aligned with your keywords, you're going to be able to view the metrics by looking at YouTube Analytics.
Now, before we get into the tips and tricks, let's take a refresher on what exactly is content marketing. Content marketing is a form of marketing that involves the creation and sharing of online content to help generate audience interest in a brand's product or services. This means providing information that the audience considers valuable and relevant in a consistent manner so that it drives some sort of profitable customer action. So let's talk about the content that falls under content marketing. There's options like blogs, videos, infographics, case studies, white papers, and ebooks. So why is content marketing so important? Firstly, it helps build awareness, trust, and loyalty in your brand. The more your brand provides accurate and well-researched content, the more people learn about and trust your brand. The more the audience trusts in you, the more they're likely to buy from you. Creating the content is relatively inexpensive and can be done in-house. Content marketing will also enable your brand to increase traffic to your site and get more conversions. It also helps improve other marketing tactics like search engine optimization, social media, and public relations. Now let's have a look at the content marketing process. The first step is to determine what goals you want to achieve with your marketing campaign. It could be increased conversions, website signups, and so on. Then you set up buyer personas from among your audience that can buy your content. But what exactly are buyer personas? Now, these are research-based profiles that represent your target customer. Buyer personas help you describe your brand's ideal audience, the decisions they make, the challenges they face, their interests, and so on. Next, you'll have to set up content audits to determine the best type of content that works for you. You also need to set up a content management system like HubSpot, Squarespace, Wix, and WordPress. They'll help you with increased collaboration, greater support, run A/B tests, and much more. You'll need to brainstorm for new forms of content that your audience can enjoy. After that, you can zero in on a particular form of content that would work the best for you. And finally, you can publish and manage your content. Now let's talk about content marketing tips. Number 1, remarket your content. Content marketing is one of the many ways you can spread your content to a wider audience. You can define the audience you want to market to and then tag visitors who come to your site. And using Google's display network, you can strategically position your ads in front of people on Google or its partner websites who previously interacted with your website and advertised to them. Through this, you can build awareness and engagement with your audience. Here's an example of a banner advertisement I would be shown if I was shopping for a MacBook Pro on Amazon and changed my mind at the last moment. This ad would maybe stay at the back of my head until eventually I go and finish that purchase. Now let's go to number 2, answering complex questions with your content. Targeting specific keywords is extremely helpful with your content. This is why you need to focus on Google's featured snippet. This position, also known as position 0, enhances and draws user attention on the search engine's result page. Through the featured snippet, you can drive a large amount of traffic to your website while cementing your position as an expert in your industry. You can have different forms of snippets, like definition boxes, where a snippet of text gives researchers direct and concise definitions and descriptions. You could have tables where data is taken from the page and displayed in a table. You could have ordered lists where items are presented in specific order, and you can also have unordered lists. Next up, number 3, we have create a personality for your brand. If you're looking to grow a following for your content, try not to copy how already established and successful corporate blogs do things. Nowadays, audiences tend to prefer content that has a certain humanness about it. Tend to follow solo influencers. They advertise their brand by being themselves. In a way, they're selling themselves by being themselves. You need to analyze what these popular and influential blogs are doing and incorporate into your brand's website. Thanks to this, your audience will connect with you and come back for more. Now, here's an example of one of the largest players in digital marketing, Neil Patel. See how he himself is the brand. And if you've gone through his content, you know it's pretty great as well. That's what you should be striving for. Moving on to tip number 4, ensure that your content matches your brand's voice. To make sure of this, you need to constantly review your editorial standards and make sure your tone and quality remain consistent. You need to ask your audience questions about how you can develop and refine your brand's voice. By answering these questions, you can provide your audience with a more cohesive and helpful experience. Your tone of your brand can vary on the basis of what type of content you're planning to post and what the goal you want to achieve from the campaign. Next up, we have number 5, back up your arguments for data. Using statistics and facts to make a point by including a link to the original source makes it extremely credible. This data can help the audience grow trust in your brand to persuade them that your content is valid and valuable. This will also help your brand grow as an industry expert. At number 6, we have use specific keywords. Now make sure you use specific keywords in your content. This takes care of the SEO aspect behind your content. This will also help your content have a greater chance of being found, indexed, and ranked. It could also help your content rank for niche topics within your industry. Moving on to tip number 7, evaluate the success of your content with data. Earlier, we talked about why it's so important that you back up your content with data. Now, let's talk about how data can help you improve. Analytics tools will help you learn more about how well your content is doing, the age demographics of the people enjoying it, who doesn't, their locations, the best time to post, and much more. With this data, you can make sure that your time and money are being used in the best possible way. Some of the most popular tools in the market are BuzzSumo, Evernote, HubSpot, Trello, and WordPress. These will help you find topics and influencers within your industry. You can capture, organize, and share notes, collaborate with team members, create sales funnels, and much more. Now, we've reached midway right now. So I've got a question for you. Do you guys have any tips for content marketing that we haven't covered yet? Let me know in the live chat. Alright, so let's get back to our list. Tip number 8 is to be consistent with your content. Post your best performing content and make sure they follow a consistent schedule. Finding a balance of the different types of content to be posted with the help of a content calendar will show your audience that you're committed to providing them helpful and informative content. This will also establish your brand as an authority and thought leader within your niche. It will help your audience depend on you for quality content and give them a reason to return. Tip number 9 is to make your content actionable. Providing actionable steps or information in your content will coerce your audience to take a particular action quickly. It can help you create valuable content and fix pain points faced by your audience, build a strong relationship with them, and earn their trust. It also leads to increased engagement and a positive brand experience. It provides users with real value and solutions, leading them to take action. Here we have an example from Trello where we see a pop-up with a call to action asking interested users to input their email IDs to sign media today involving more than 200 marketers. More than 49% of them felt content marketing was really important to their digital marketing campaigns, and more than 25% of their budgets are used for visual advertising. Content like images, infographics, videos, and other forms of rich media will help you enhance the message of your brand and reach a wider audience. Here's an example of advertising by Coca-Cola. Although there's not a lot of text in the ads, you can immediately recognize the unmistakable branding and the message they're trying to send. Moving on to tip number 11, create trending and evergreen content. Creating content that's evergreen and trending with your own unique angle, statistics, and research will be a huge advantage since you'll have to update it every now and then. You'll get a great deal out of the work without having to do a lot of work. Here's an example of one such evergreen article. People are never going to stop wanting to learn how to do SEO. So with a little tweaking every few months to reflect new changes that Google may have done, you'll have an article that you can get considerable mileage out of. Next up, tip number 12 is to understand content that works for you. You need to analyze what content works on different social media platforms. For example, you all know YouTube is the best place for video content, Instagram and Pinterest for visual content, Twitter for smaller snappy content, and so on. Understanding what works and what doesn't will help you better spread your content across the internet. Tip number 13 is to understand your target audience. Now, like I mentioned earlier, your marketing campaign isn't going to bear fruit without targeting a specific audience. Understanding who your audience is one of the most important steps for this. You can find this out by asking questions like who you're engaging with online, their age, location, language, etc. By using social listening to find out what audiences are talking about your brand, using tools to research what social channels your audience is using, and so on. After understanding them, you can set up buyer personas for your audience. Tip number 14 is to perform A/B testing. Now, A/B testing will help you understand what your audience likes or doesn't, what content works for you, and much more. You can do A/B testing on headlines and title tags, call to actions, content formats, image types, content length, and much more. It can also help you make better decisions in the future. And finally, our tip number 15 is to reach out to people sharing similar content. One of the best ways to build your audience is to get people or influencers who already share content within your niche to share your content. Now, since these people already have a trusting audience, they would be a lot more likely to enjoy your content.
Content marketing, interview questions and answers. So thanks for joining again, and here's how it's going to work. So if you have any questions to these questions or answers, feel free to just comment right below this video and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We're going to go through a series of questions and I'm going to answer those questions for you. Starting out, what are the essential components of a good web content? Okay, so essential components. Okay, so what do we want our content to do? Well, we want it to be useful. So web content should be written in a way which caters to what the reader wants. Okay, so somebody's not going to read your content if it's not useful for them. Okay, this because it affects reader engagement. Okay, so if it's not interesting, it's not useful, somebody's just not going to read it. Plain and simple. It also has to be engaging. So listen, even if it is relevant to a user, you still have to write the content so it's engaging. So you want to add elements like imagery, videos. Hey, you could even turn your content into an infographic. Okay, you want to do something that's going to be engaging for the user. If it's engaging, they're going to read it and engage with the content. Okay, and then good content should have some call to action. So content must be written in a way that can drive call to action. Okay, so if you're writing a blog post, I've seen a lot of blog posts just simply start and end with good content, but it doesn't leave the user with anywhere to go. So have that call to action. Put some internal links in that content. Give somebody a place to go after they're done engaging with the good content that you write. Okay, so some other things to think about, some other components for good content. Well, credibility. So, anybody can write, but are you writing about something you know what you're writing about? Are you a good talking point, a good expert, or have experience about this content? So you also want to use, information from a legitimate source. Okay, so you don't want to grab something and use it in your content that's just not legitimate, because it does hurt your credibility and the organization's credibility. And then also originality. Write something that nobody else has written. So obviously you don't want to plagiarize, because if you plagiarize, and there are tools out there where people can easily just put their content in there to see what else is out there, see if somebody else has plagiarized it. So it's very easy to find people who plagiarize. So don't be that person. What I would recommend, create a good content calendar and come up with some ideas before you write them. Next question related to content marketing. So what are the types of content you can create? Well, there are a lot of things you can create. Start with the blog. Blog to me is always a great place to start. It's a blank canvas for your ideas, your thoughts, your opinions. Okay, that's a great thing about a blog. It accentuates personality. You can create a video. Videos are always engaging. You can create an infographic. Infographics to me are, a hidden gem. Instead of somebody reading the same old, you're laying this out in a very visual way that's easy to understand. Create a case study. Okay, so if you're digital marketing expert, done social media for another client, write about it. Show the successes, show that you are an expert, show that you've created successful campaigns in social in the form of a case study. You can create a white paper. White papers are good educational pieces. You can also create an ebook. Okay, ebook, hey, if you have a lot of content, you want to lay it out, an ebook's a good way to go. You have a lot of choices here when it comes to content, a lot of choices. Okay, so what are the advantages of having a content calendar? So I alluded to that just a couple of seconds ago. So let's really break this down here, because content calendars to me are so important. Well, first of all, counterpart of content calendar allows you to think about dates. So if you're planning something, you're going to have important dates in mind. Okay, so content calendar almost ensures you don't miss anything, that's a good opportunity for you to leverage, like, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's probably important when those days are if you're in e-commerce. So that's why having a content calendar helps. It helps you plan out your content based on important dates, or based on dates that work for what you're trying to do. They also help because you could stick to a consistent schedule. Okay, so if you don't have a content calendar, you're probably just arbitrarily writing content here and there. Well, what if your users crave and really engage with the content? They're going to want more. Sticking to something consistent is going to really get people to come back for more. They know when you're going to post. They're going to be waiting for it. And if it's every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, hey, post it Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. Your users will get used to that schedule. And it does help build up your following. It does help build up your community. And in the end, cultivates a long-lasting relationship. And then having a content calendar also allows you to mix up your content. Okay, so you can see and plan ahead different types of content in different formats. That way, it allows you to mix it up. Okay, whether it be a blog post, an infographic, a video about different topics. Okay, some other advantages here: saving time. It just allows you to prepare for the future. When you can prepare, you're efficient. And when you're efficient, you're not wasting time. And so to me, having a content calendar is a must, because a lot of us are busy. Who has time? And especially if you're going to work in a new company, so let's say writing content, you definitely want to have a content calendar, because you're going to want to use that time to efficiently plan. This is a new company you're going to start working at. You want to understand who this company is, what they've done in the past, what you haven't done, and what you want to do. Okay, so all of that helps you plan and prepare, and it saves you the time and effort and hassle down the road. And then at the end of the day, you want to be able to figure out what works. So planning your posts puts less strain on you and your team members, as well as company resources, because when you plan and you post, you're going to get data. And then when you get data, it's either going to work or not work. And if it doesn't work, then in the future, you're not going to put that piece of content or that topic in the content calendar again. It's that simple. Okay, some other advantages: fresh content. Okay, so having a content calendar allows you to always keep content fresh. Again, you're going to be on a consistent schedule, and you're not going to be writing about the same things over and over again. So it could be just simply Twitter. If you're putting a content calendar and together for Twitter, well, you don't want to have the same tweets every other day. So it does ensure that you're getting tweets out there that are fresh, that are new, that are different. And again, figure out what works. A content calendar makes it easier to measure results and optimize performance. So you always want to, maybe put some metrics in with your content calendar, so you can see side by side content historically that has performed, content that has not performed. Okay, so next question you may get: what type of content works in each stage of the customer life cycle? So you have awareness, engagement, purchase, post-purchase, advocacy. Okay, so let's break these down here. So awareness. Okay, so you want people to understand who you are. Okay, that could be a guest blog, an influencer helping you out. It could be a cold email, a video that can potentially go viral, a social media post, introducing a product. You have engagement. So you want people to engage with your content. What are you going to do to get people to engage? Well, you could certainly write an email and have people open that email and go to your website. You can have an ebook where people can actually download and read it. Or you can have a blog where people can comment, or a landing page where they can fill out a form submission. You have evaluation. So with social media, we know there's a lot of engagement going on, but when you're putting content out there, you can certainly open it up to testimonials. Okay, you can generate white papers. Okay, or you can generate case studies. Case studies are a good way for companies to evaluate what you've done in the past. If you've worked for a specific product in the past and it's worked, you certainly want to put that out there for potential clients in that same industry. Purchase. Trying to get people to purchase, what are you going to do? Well, you can certainly have landing pages, a nice, website, a nice shopping cart with some nice content. Okay, onboarding emails. Get those emails out there and get people to go back to the website and purchase. Of course, you can have product and service details as well, meaning, one page downloadable PDFs that describe the product. Okay, you have post-purchase. Okay, so people who've already purchased, you can certainly send out follow-up emails. You can do blog roundups, give people an opportunity to see what features or updates are happening to the product. Okay, of course, case studies of repeat customers or content types that detail a new feature or service. Okay, so if somebody's already purchased, you may want to send them some content of another product that complements the product they bought. So a lot of things you can do to engage with your user who's already purchased. And then advocacy. You want people to help you out here. So have the user generate the content. You can have exclusive discounts for your community. They're going to be your advocates, so give them exclusive discounts. And then pictures of customers engaging with your products. Okay, who's not going to share that? So you're going to have people share that information. In other words, you can generate content where, hey, people can help you out here and be your advocate. Okay, so how do you decide what topic and subject to write on? Okay, well, going back to the content calendar, that always helps you to see what you've put in that content calendar. But there are some other methods you can use. And you could certainly identify your target audience. And not only identify your target audience, but what their needs are. Okay, so you can write content based on audience. So you could certainly do some research with keywords. Okay, what's trending? What keywords are not trending? Okay, and write around what's trending, for example. Okay, you could certainly take a look at social media, for example, Quora. I always look at Quora. Quora is interesting, entertaining, informational. Hey, people are certainly having conversations on Quora. And you can certainly analyze those conversations because they certainly get in depth, and you can decide, hey, do I want to write a topic around something that really just won't go away in terms of conversing? Quora is a good example of analyzing conversations. They tend to be a little bit more in depth. So some other things you could do, you can look at your competitors and what kind of conversations are happening on your competitors' blogs or your competitors' social media platforms and pages. You can keep track of blogs and articles from subject matter experts, commentators, critics, and so on. Okay, so you can get ideas from them. Another question you may get, which is very important, if you're going to start working for a company, you need to understand the tone of your content, because that is going to fit and be in line with the company you're working for. Okay, so you're always going to have a brand personality. So the characteristics of a brand are the guidelines based on which the content strategy is developed. The tone of the content must align itself to the content strategy. Your audience profile. So you need to determine who your audience is. Okay, and how the brand wants to be seen by that audience. So, if you have an older audience, you're not going to use younger audience, i.e. street lingo or today's lingo and the younger generation. You're going to use language that's going to fit the audience you're talking to. And then, of course, the channel itself. So the content you create must be irrespective of the channel and consistent with brand attributes. Okay, so you gotta pick and choose the channel. If it's LinkedIn, for example, hey, LinkedIn's more business oriented. Okay, so you're not gonna be, as humorous as you would be, say, on Instagram or Facebook. All of these have one thing in common. Again, that's brand guidelines. You have to stay within the brand. What is the brand's personality? How do we want to talk to our audience? And what platform are we using to talk to our audience? How do you promote your content once it's live? Well, that's always a good question. Hey, you doing the work, putting in the hard work to create this, it could be a video, and videos take a long time. It could be an infographic, an ebook. Okay, so send it out via email. Okay, if you have an email list, send it out and let people know this content's there. Put a link in the email or even a piece or snippet or preview of the content in the email. So you're using the email to broadcast and encourage people to, if it's an ebook, get the rest of the ebook. Okay, you can certainly leverage social media to engage with your community. That's the best, just as good as email. Get out there and let people know, hey, I got my book published. Come and download it. You can give a discount to the first 100 people that download it. Okay, you can always promote your content via ads. So whether that be Google or Facebook, you always have an opportunity to be more prominent by advertising the content that you have to offer. So you can always reach out on social media Again, targeting interesting people directly, so you can always interact with people on social. Or you can write for others. Attract people from the web to important pages of your website by guest posting. So you can always go onto a popular blog post and write something and link it up or have it be relevant to the content you've written. So next question, how can you determine how well your content is doing? Okay, very important. Again, you've done all the work. You've put the content calendar together. You got the content ready to go. It's published. You're promoting it. Social, email, guest blogging, but you want to determine how it's doing. Well, depends on the channel, really is what it comes down to. So if it's organic search, you want to be able to see if it's ranking for the keywords you optimize that content for. If it's social, you want to be able to see if you have engagement, shares, comments, etc. Of course, you can always look at analytics and see how much traffic that blog post is getting, or that page with the white paper is getting. Okay, so you can always look at your analytics and look at the traffic. Okay, and again, you can always look to see if there are conversions in the form of an inquiry or lead or sale. So at the end of the day, you want to align the content with the channel, and you want to align the KPI with the content in channel. Okay, so if it's social, you're not likely going to get conversions unless you're doing paid ads. If you're posting organically on social, then you're probably going to get some engagement. So you have to align the right metric with the right channel. What are the steps involved in the content marketing process? Okay, so you really need to decide what goal you want to achieve with the content marketing campaign. So that goes back to what I was just saying a minute ago. If you have content you post it on social, then what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? Well, you're probably going to get engagement and likes. You need to define buyer personas to determine the audience best suited for your content. Okay, so you're always writing for an audience, and you're going to market that content for that audience. So you always got to keep that in mind. Okay, run content audits to determine the best type of content that can be used. In other words, how did it perform? What kind of engagement did you get with the infographic? Or did that video really perform well? Or do we want to use, a blog post next time around, or an image next time around? So continuing on here, you want to choose an appropriate content management system. Okay, so how are we managing all this content? Okay, is it WordPress or is it another platform? Okay, you could start brainstorming for ideas for new content. So again, that goes back to the content calendar. You leverage your content calendar to always create ideas for new content. Okay, then you want to settle on a particular type of content that you want to create. Okay, so once you come up and you're managing your content, you come up with some ideas, then you obviously want to choose the format, and then of course you want to publish and manage your content after it's all said and done. So these are the steps involved. Again, just quickly decide on the goal, the KPI, decide on your audience, look at what's worked and not worked in the past, get your content set up in the platform, okay, or get the platform ready to go, I should say. Okay, generate ideas with that content calendar, or ideally go to the content calendar for the ideas. Choose that type and then publish and manage. And when I say manage, I mean, again, going back to analytics or going back to the KPI that you align with that content to see if it's performing or not. Okay, so next question here. How do you target the right audience for your content? It's a very good question. You're not writing content for everyone. Let's be honest here. So you have to collect demographics of your target audience based on who's coming to your website, based on who subscribed to your emails, based on who's following you on social media. So in other words, you have people interacting with you, okay, in different channels, and you need to understand who these people are. So do they fit a certain age range or generation? Are they skewed more female to male? Education level? What's their affinity or interest? Okay, do they have a certain income? So you need to really break down your audience here, and you could do that in analytics. You could do that on social. You can do that just by looking at your email list. Okay, all those will paint a picture as to who your audience is.
I'm Greg Jarbo. I'm a member of the Market Motive faculty. In this first section, we're going to talk about what content marketing is, how it works, and also explore why it works. It seems like a new buzzword to you. It's actually a term that's been around for quite some time. It's just web search interest in content marketing has tripled since 2010, according to Google Trends, and that's why a lot of people are now just starting to get their arms around it. So, what is content marketing? Well, according to Rebecca Lieb, a friend of mine who wrote an article in Advertising Age, content marketing is not just a glorified way to say social media marketing. It's actually a little broader concept. So, content marketing does include social media, and you can use blogs, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Vimeo, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, Foursquare, Instagram, Flickr, StumbleUpon, Tumblr, SlideShare, and Quora, and you can put all of those together in a content marketing program. And all of this content can be optimized so that it can be found in search engines as well as in social media or in the usual places like your website. One of the ways to sort of conceptualize this is the classic Venn diagram. Brian Clark of Copyblogger has put together a really interesting white paper called The Business Case for Agile Content Marketing, in which he's created this particular diagram that shows search, social, and content, and the overlap of the three is where he positions content marketing. And that may help you understand where it fits. It's sort of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it also shows you both the potential leverage that you can get when you begin combining these elements, but also the potential conflicts you may encounter inside an organization who says, hey, wait a second, that's my job. And the real challenge to content marketing is getting people who have been doing their job independently, headed off in their own unique direction, to actually collaborate and coordinate what they're doing and leveraging each other's capabilities to create something that's a little more powerful.
And with that, we have come to the end of this video on Content Marketing Full Course. I hope it was informative and interesting. If you have any questions about the topics covered in this video, please ask away in the comment section below. Our team will help you solve your queries. Thanks for watching, stay safe and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.